Steve.
When in doubt, throttle out. Dave.
If you can't find them, grind them. Welcome to Squarebodytalk. My name's Dave. This is my co-host Steve from Fortify Offroad. In this video, we'll be discussing the true cost of a 5.3 swap into a square body, using our swaps as examples. Also, if you guys have any suggestions for further episodes, let us know in the comments below. And if you had $1 million, cold hard cash, what truck would you build? We're going to be talking about that later in the episode, so definitely chime in on the live chat. If you're watching this on the replay, let us know in the comments below how much you got tied up in your swap, and if you had $1 million, what kind of truck would you build? Oh, I love that intro.
Mm-hmm. So sick.
Hey, if you guys like that intro, go ahead and hit that smash that like button. Drive your truck into it. Do whatever you got to do. What's up tonight, guys?
How you guys doing?
I got a few questions for Steve that I want to answer. So, Steve, tell me, what is Fortify Offroad?
So Fortify Offroad is a company that me and my good buddy Scott started a bunch of years ago, probably almost 4 years ago, and we build coilover conversions for square body Chevys. So it's all about making the trucks more comfortable, hitting jumps, crawling trails, pretty much whatever you could possibly think of. It does better in every way than any stock truck could do with leaf springs.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Hell yeah.
Let's take it for a ride.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to come down there and check them out sometime soon. So, question 2 I got is I need some tips on growing a beard because all I got is like this funky little patch here, and it's just, it ain't working out for me. I don't know what to do.
Well, so there's a couple secrets. First of all, you got to hit puberty. And when the testosterone starts flowing through your veins, then this stuff right here, not the white stuff, don't pay any attention, but this brown stuff right here starts coming out of your face. So yeah, you just have to wait. Just don't shave ever.
Wait, don't shave.
For like 4 months.
I try to, but it looks like super awkward and it just ain't working out.
Yeah, some of us got it, some of us don't. It's all good.
Right on.
All right. Well, I got a couple for you, Dave. Okay, so I had this question for a long time. I watch your videos since you had the Arctic Blaze. That's been like a bunch of years, probably like what, 05, something, I don't know. But dude, yeah, forever. So I'm thinking, I was kind of like curious as to how you got into this, and then why do you keep doing it, and what keeps you doing it?
Well, I don't know. I started YouTube in 09. I just made a couple of videos of the Blazer, and then I didn't really do much with it until 2013, and then I don't know, just started going hard on it, doing the LS swap, and did some LS videos, and just decided to post them up and see what happened. And kind of sucked at first, but I enjoy it. I like making the videos and like, you know, I guess just sharing my knowledge and, you know, trying to help people out. So it's that's kind of what it's all about for me now, is just the community.
Right on, brother. That's a great reason to do it, and I know that these guys really are looking for good technical info, and hopefully we can nail that down with this show we got going on.
Hell yes. Hell yes.
Okay, one more question, because I got to know the worst stuck or break story that you ever had in your truck, and you can't use your buddy's truck as an example. It has to be yours.
Oh, God. I would say, so a couple years ago, when I had the K10, it was on 35s, had the SM465 in it, thought I was a badass crawler. What's up, Scott? Brad, what's up? What's up, Senor Taco? Good to see you guys up in here. So I cruised out to Sand Hollow with my club. Actually, Red in here, A. Scott Willett, he is in my 4x4 club. But we went to Sand Hollow. We were on some 7 trails. Everything was going smooth. Everything was good. And then, you know, somebody was like, hey, let's go do one more trail. And so I'm like, all right, let's do it, you know. So get the K10 going. We're on a 7 rated trail. End up turning into a 9 rated trail, unbeknownst to me. and
Woo!
things went
Big boy
downhill.
stuff right there.
Yeah, ended up high center in the truck. Log rolled on the rear drive line. Drive line ended up snapping. Ended up busted a couple beads off in the front. And then after that, I just had to get winched all the way out. On the last hill, I was putting a lot of pressure on the front end. Snapped the front U-joint. And from there, I had to be pulled through the sand dunes by a frickin' JK and a YJ with an LS swap to get me out of there. Towed me to their buddy's house, and then I had to ride home with my buddy with no tops and no door to get the Suburban so that I could rent a U-Haul trailer and tow it. And the crappy part about that is on the way home, when I went to pick the truck up, I had my son Dan in the car, and he was this little guy at the time. I don't know, like 6 months or something. And on the way back on the I-15, the one with the 14 bolt and everything in the K10, I was coming down this hill and got a little bit too fast, and that trailer just started doing one of those, and I had to like move to the middle lane of the I-15, and I sped up. I never hit the brake. I sped up, and luckily I hit the bottom of that sucker, and was able to and I pulled over when I was done, and the Swift driver pulled behind me, and he like gave me a hug. He's like, "I was praying for you," and I was like, "Holy crap, dude!" I was like, I almost died.
You had to use one of your son's divers, probably, yeah.
Oh, I had to change
That's scary, bro.
Right after that, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't mess around with towing. Hey, so actually, we had one of these guys, Scott, over here, ask about a question. He's said, "What's a good manual trans for a tow rig LS swap?" And follow hard. Oh, how hard is it to convert from an auto to a manual? Okay, so my truck, I actually use a crap ton for towing. So I have a Gen 4 5.3, which is a basically it's a 5.3 high compression with Trailblazer SS intake and variable valve timing and flex fuel. Other than that, they're all pretty much the same. The 5.3 with the 85 in front of the NV 4500 that I've got 410 gears on a 33-inch tire. It works great. It's gappy though. The E85 helps it. If you're on regular 91, even with a pretty aggressive tune, it's still pretty lacking in the really low end torque, and I mean by like 2,000 RPM and under. So when I switch to the 410 gear, it puts me at like 2,500 at 55. It will pull that for the most part with almost any weight behind it. If you're over 7,000 pounds, it starts to struggle a little bit. But don't let anybody tell you that a 5.3 won't tow, because I've put 10,000 pounds behind that trailer, and it's been totally fine. So if you're thinking about it, 5.3, NV 4500, it's awesome. You can shift it like it's a T56. So you think it's a race car when it's not. At least that's what I think, anyways.
I don't know about 6-speed, Scott. I would say, if you go on 6-speed, you're probably gonna have to go auto, because I'm not sure any 6-speed manuals that are out there. About you, Steve?
The only one I've ever heard of is the NV 5600, but I don't know that anybody's ever put that behind an LS, and I think it'd be a lot of wasted horsepower there. Maybe if you were like twin turbo or something like that, but still, it's kind of a slow shifting trans. The 6-speed is so. I don't know. I mean, if you're going to do that and you really want the multiple ranges, an automatic's probably where you should be anyways.
What's up, Jeff Shaw? Good to see you up in here. He says, wish we could post pics. The 77 K10 rebuild is moving forward. Right on, brother.
Sweet. Have to check that out.
Right on. So, hey, Steve, why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself? Just kind of introduce yourself to the Dix4x4.com.
Let's see here. You know what? Before I do that, what the heck's behind that sweater you got there? You got some you want to show us? Oh, dang! What?
I'm freezing my butt off in the garage.
What?
Freezing my butt. You got yours on too, though, don't you?
Oh yeah. So okay. So Steve, what makes Steve tick? So basically, my grandpa has had square bodies since I was a baby. He bought a 78 C30 back in the day. It's got a big block. He used to work for General Motors for like 30 years. So it's in my family's blood. Like we used to get the actual family discount before like GM gave everybody the family discount. Remember that? So, that's kind of where it all started. And after that, it's pretty much all downhill. about 6 years ago on my birthday, my dad gave me his 79 K5, and that thing had 3/4 ton axles underneath it, turbo 350, small block, carbureted, smog legal. It's kind of whatever. It was a fun truck, and it was still like an 80s build. Like you could tell by the grill and all that stuff that it was 1980s, but it was still a cool truck. It was clean. It needed some work because it had been sitting for about 2 years, but I went through and cleaned it all up. So that was all good. It was cool because he had it when he was in college, and then I had it after I got out, and it's kind of all the rest of its history. I named her Lucy. Obviously, if you guys have followed us, yeah, I got the Lucy and Ethel thing, so that's kind of where that came from. It's a homage to I Love Lucy. I thought that show was pretty funny. Those two girls getting in trouble all the time. These trucks are the same way. If one's not broken, the other one is, and the other one's towing the other one. Is freaking stupid. But yeah, so Ethel's my daily. I got her from a good buddy. We did some bartering and some suspension work, and I actually was going to boost that diesel motor that it had. It was a 6.2 with a 465, which is miserable. Yeah, it was terrible.
How are we going to do that?
Well, so I thought, I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be, kind of cheap to do it. It'll get really good mileage, and I wasn't really going to tow that much. So for a road going truck that really doesn't have any weight behind it, the 6.2 is not that bad. And if you boost them, they're okay. They're like mild small block fast. And if you got one that doesn't have a cracked block, it's not too bad. And you could still squeeze, 20 some odd miles per gallon out of it. Not knowing.
Taco says LOL 6.2.
This is where I get to that point.
Unless it's an LS,
Yeah, right. No, so I want to get that would be cool to put a 6.2 LS in it at some point. But so I didn't know anything about the LS until I knew about the LS. Me and Dave talked about this the other day. It's kind of a joke now that people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to put a big block in my truck. I'm going to put a Vortec, whatever. And it's like, do you not know about how badass the LS swap is? It changes, it makes everything on the truck seem shitty besides the motor.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. It does. Hey, what's up, X-Ray Ted? Good to see you up in here, brother. So are you on ChevyK5Blazer.com, Steve?
I am on Chevy K5 Blazer. I'm not that active. I'm mostly active on CK5.com. We're a vendor on that site, so they take really good care of us. There's a lot of really good guys on there. I'm not partial to either site, but that's my home. That's where I've got my build threads. I got probably 6 of them on there.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Dude, driving a K20 to Alaska with a 4Runner and a trailer, that is gnarly. With a 465.
465,
sure.
410s and 35s, baby.
Dude, I will say that's got to be uphill the whole way, right? That would suck.
What engine did you have in there, Bill? I got to scroll. I don't know if I can scroll up on the chat, but what engine did you have in there, Bill? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, right?
Exactly. What are you talking about there, Scott?
He's got a 6.2 diesel.
6.2. Got about 20 miles to the gut. That ain't too bad, though.
Mine was getting 16. Yeah, dude, the last trip we made 17 miles to the gallon at the Mint 400, and she did really good. And that was like, all right, cool, I like the 6.2, and then it broke.
Oh, jeez.
It was really. So then it was all about the LS. So I'll kind of cover what the rest of my little thing here. So the key here for me was I went and I discovered the block was cracked. That was kind of disheartening. So I was like, well, the next logical thing to do is put an LS in, and I called up LKQ thinking that I could get a complete motor with a motor with a harness and all the accessories. And I didn't know that there was a Gen 4, Gen 3, and all this other stuff when I bought that. So I ordered the motor, and it was like $2,500, and I was like, sweet, it's 2012, this thing's gonna be sick. Went back through, go to pick the motor up. I show up, and there's a long block in the corner. I'm like, oh my God,
dude,
this can't be it. So I'm like, no, dude, the guy I talked to on the phone told me, because I asked him like 10 times, you're sure it comes with a harness and a throttle body and all this other shit? And he's like, yeah, man, yeah, and it's got a warranty and everything. And I was like, dude, this is the best deal in the century. Well, was I wrong? So I walked in there, and I'm like, you know what? You guys got to make this right. And they actually did make it right. So they knocked a couple of $100 off of it, and they made it right. So that was cool. I ended up spending a lot more in all the little ancillary parts that you don't know about, the hidden costs and stuff that people don't ever tell you about their $1,000 swap. Well, they might have got a complete truck for $1,000, but they're not going to tell you all the little stuff that it cost them.
Oh,
So,
it's all that little stuff that makes it so expensive, man. Definitely is. Especially when you
yeah.
get right to the end. Oh, we got C72C up in here.
Uh-oh.
We got some YouTube royalty in the house.
Oh my gosh, you guys, this guy, this C72C, he might be trying to fly down under the radar tonight, but this is Reckless Wrenches, everybody in the house. Hey, and Bill, you're crazy to roll a 454 all the way up there. I don't know. One muffler, 400 miles out of Z-bar, that does not sound like fun. Stuck on the side of the road for a night, had a bear climb into the bumper while I was sleeping. I would have shit my pants.
You had a bear climb into the what? What am I missing here?
Right there.
Stuck on the side of the road one night, had a bear climb into the bumper while I could just picture that. He's probably just like, damn,
oh, yeah.
And then it's like, here comes Mr. Bear.
Just like, holy shit, that's the reason why you have gun racks in Alaska, so you could defend yourself against the bears.
Oh, yeah.
Holy crap, man, that's crazy.
With a shoe or something.
Yeah, get out of here, waving his underwear in the air.
Shoot.
Throwing beer cans at him. Make a bunch of noise.
Exactly.
Holy crap.
What's up, Robert Kraft? Good to see you up in here.
Brother? Yeah, right, the $500 swap. Yeah, man, we're kind of here to kind of dispel that, at least from our perspective. There's a lot of shit that could go wrong if you don't really do your research. And you know what? I think the both of us are kind of long-winded, but that's kind of what this is about, is trying to get that right information out there. And you know what, guys? I'm really stoked that all you guys are here. I'm really stoked that you guys will be able to join us for this adventure. We're trying to do this thing right, and we're calling it Squarebodytalk. This is where we're going to be covering all this tech talk. So, and if you guys have questions, like if you're watching this on the replay, make sure to hit subscribe and leave some comments in the section so that we can kind of cover that stuff that if you're not able to participate in the live feed.
Absolutely.
What about you, Dave?
Well,
Let's hear your story.
Well, I'm a sucker for a $600 Chevy. So I paid $500 for my K5. I paid $600 for my K10. And I paid $600 for this K20 you see behind me here. I even paid $600 for the crawler hauler that's sitting outside my house, which is a 2005 freaking 3500, which that was crazy.
Wow.
But I like to give them new life. I like to LS swap them. Try to document the whole thing as I go along. Like it's one of those things with the builds that it's like when I do the video, it's like the video is almost as important as actually doing the build for me. And putting it out there, and then just talking with people that make comments, and I think it legit helps because I get a lot of people that say, hey man, you help me with my build and all that stuff. So that is what's important to me. But I started off with the K5. I got it back in 2009 and rolled it for a while with a turbo 350. Swapped in a 465, and then decided to go LS. And then from there it was all downhill.
Wait. You're talking about the Arctic Blaze, right?
Yep.
You mean that's that truck that you should have never got rid of?
I know, dude. I should have never mangled the left side of it.
Mine's mangled. It's out there in the garage, right, where it's cold, and I'm in here where it's warm. That's why I'm not outside.
Yeah, dude. I wish I would have kept that Blazer. But in retrospect, I got the K10 that turned into being a pretty cool build. Putting it out on the forums, and then
that thing's pretty
sitting over here. It's shortened. Here, let me do that. It's sitting over here. And I shortened the frame and blah, 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 blah. But anyways, it's been a cool truck, and now we're working on the K20 to try to get this sucker going, so I need to get a trans for it. But yeah, so that's it for me. I love making videos, and I love just kind of doing my thing. I also got a 2018 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon that I take out wheeling, and that's pretty fun. So I'm not quite sure how my subscribers are feeling about that. But you know what I mean? Sometimes you got to take a break.
You know what? There's something to be said about wheeling with air conditioning or a heater in a sealed cabin.
Bro, I got air conditioning in the K10 though. When I go wheeling, I got that.
Well, that's pretty rad.
That vintage air, baby.
Woo! Yeah, I got the old air products in my K20, and when it's like 120 degrees outside, when you don't have it, and your feet are sweating because the floor is like emitting all the heat, and you're like, oh god, this sucks. and then you look at your intake air temperatures on the computer and it says 135 degrees, and you're like, you know what? I should probably invest all of the money into my AC
You
because
probably
it doesn't
should.
matter. Yeah, it
You
doesn't matter
probably
at that
should.
point.
All
Who
right,
cares
let's
what your
see. I'm
seats
gonna
look
read over
like?
some comments. What do we got going on? 16C10. What's up, brother? Grumpy's Garage. My K5 needs one of your front coilover kits. Well, you better hit him up on some
Oh
Instagram.
yeah, brother. Heck yeah. Hit
Romeo
us up.
Mitchell. Got him up in here. What's up, Romeo Mitchell?
Stock sway bars work good if you can use the drop brackets. Hey, funny tidbit, and I don't know if this is common knowledge or not. Hey, so you guys know that the sway bar on the front of a Chevy pickup is actually part of it, like a fourth link. If you ever look at how big the bolts are and how big the bar is, GM used that to help with anti-wrap under braking and under throttle, and that's part of the reason why everything's so big. So if you guys are putting sway bar disconnects on there, that kind of defeats the actual anti-wrap portion. Now some of the leaf springs that you buy aftermarket, help that from wrapping up, so it's not as big of a deal. But if you're doing what I did, like pulling apart spring packs to make the truck sit the right way, and you hit the brakes and you can feel the pinion like wrap up, it's not so good. So the sway bar bracket to drop on the frame is probably the more appropriate way to do that. But yeah, so what else we got here, Dave?
What's Robert Kraft talking about up in here?
Said your K5 was a beast. Sick.
Well, dude, I love that truck, man. And it was a
epic.
Bro-Am too, but I love that truck though. It was fun. It was like
There will be another.
It was the first, I mean, I've got it for $5. It was sitting on the side of this house for a while, and my buddy saw it for $1,000. And my brother-in-law bought a 4Runner, and I'm like, I can't be like without a 4x4. So
Yeah.
I went to the guy's house. My buddy told me about it at work, and I knocked on his door, and I was like, hey man, how much you want to sell that Blazer for? And he's like,
Nice.
I'll take $500. And I was like,
Dude.
I was like, what about $250? And he's like, well, the carburetor's worth like $500. So I'm like, all right. So went and towed it home. You know what's funny about that story, right? So my wife's like, no, I don't want you to buy that POS. Don't be going and doing that. And so I'm like, whatever. So I take her Avalanche to go pick it up, right? I borrowed my buddy's race car trailer. Went over there. We freaking got the K5 up with a freaking come along. And then as I'm driving, I dropped the truck off. And then as I'm driving to return the trailer, I hear like this power steering pump whine. And I'm like, man, I wonder what that could be. Turns out I smoked the transmission. So the wife was especially unhappy about the whole deal. I could count on 2 fingers the amount of times she's ridden in my square bodies.
Oh man, that's messed up. Yeah, when you smoke the trans, she's probably like, F this thing,
Yeah, she did. She don't
Oh,
like it.
dude.
My wife it has to be a new car. She's like, she ain't having it.
We'll have to change her mind on that, dude. It was funny. We'll have to get her in the truck with mine. So when we were at King of the Hammers this last week, which was an epic trip, and I managed to make that 9-inch survive for about 15 minutes longer than it probably should have survived. Thing was roasted. I don't know if you guys saw that feed, but that thing was raunchy. Anyways, the wife drove the K5 Lucy, and she took one of her girlfriends in it, and I mean, they had a blast. And it was kind of cool to see my wife driving my truck, which I never thought I would actually ever see happen. Because, you build these things, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to take my family in it. And then the reality is like that sometimes doesn't actually get to happen.
Bro, that never happens.
Right?
You just
So
end up
my
mashing
kid's
it by
been in it.
yourself.
Oh, I know. And then your buddies. But, my kid's been in it. He's had a good time. My wife's been in it. So it's, legitimately part of the family now. So it's really cool when you guys, if you can swing that and you can convince her and get her in there, it changes everything.
Look,
When she's broke, she ain't broke
that
long.
dude up in here, he says, what does that dude say? He said, Dave, I bought a K5 because of you. Right, oh, man. It sold it for double the price I paid for it. Yeah, you're probably
Nice.
all those guys out there that have K5s that are
I need 30 grand.
every single K5 you find, well, other than mine, but I look for the freaking, for the deals. But it's
Right.
you see these busted K5s, and it's like, hey, bro, man, how much you want to sell that for? $3,500. And you're like,
Yeah, right.
bro. It's like, well,
Come on, that's
I'll come back
$1,500
in
truck.
1 year, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, and you see that the Craigslist ad's been redone 7 times.
Yeah.
Your 30 days is up, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, now they're selling square bodies for $120,000. What's up with that, man?
Bro,
It's crazy.
No, man. man.
It's
This looks
crazy.
crazy.
I'm
It's
glad I
getting
got two of
crazy.
them when they were cheap.
Dude, you can't just have one square body. I'm surprised C72C, aka the path of the reckless wrench. I don't even know what he's doing hanging out with that Ford guy. But anyways,
Oh, I know, right? What's up with that,
it's
man?
like some of that Ranger, bro.
Yeah, it should have an LS in it, not a 305 or whatever, a
What?
351.
What's it? Is there a 351 in that thing?
Oh man. Yeah, I think it is. I think they swapped it. I don't know what's done on the motor, but I do remember seeing something about a bigger Ford V8. But yeah, it gets it pretty good for a Ranger. I mean, I guess it's all right
Yeah,
if
they're doing their thing. It's all good.
No, it's cool. It's cool.
Let's see what else we got going on up in here. In Altom, which is X-ray Ted Dave, if I remember correctly, you're running the mini spool in the front, 10 bolt of your K10 crawler. When you're on the trails, are you leaving both the hubs? Nah, so the axle's actually out of there and in the K20 right now, so it's back where it came from. And it pretty much sucked wheeling with the mini spool. I mean, obviously I had traction, but most of the time I would just lock one hub in, and it'd be like true three-wheel drive, I guess you could say. But it sucked. It sucked because like I'd almost rather have it open,
Yeah,
because when
I
your
did
one
this too.
wheel gets up like against a rock, there's no power going to it, and so you're like
Right.
always like binding it up. So yeah, I'm spoiled with the Jeep with the Rubicon because it's got those electric lockers, and just it makes life so much easier. So much
A
easier.
selectables, man, for the win. I did the welded thing for a while on Ethel too. I welded the front and the back. It's still welded actually, and like it'll go up anything, but dang, dude, it doesn't turn at all. It's miserable. So don't weld the front.
Yeah.
Don't put a spool in the front if you're gonna do anything in the front. So our race truck is it's a K5. It has a Torsen or a True Track. So that does not understeer. The only bad thing about those is when you lift a tire, it's one tire fire. So, for that thing, it's cool. For a normal trail truck, probably not, ideal. There you go. That was a good one.
Yeah, it's not coming through though. I switched it to you. No audio.
Damn. Dave burped, if anybody was wondering. Oh man. So,
All right,
anyways, yeah.
what's up, Thomas? Save 300, SAV 300. I don't know. One step closer to an LS swap. Blew my S. You know what? Forced upgrades, bruh.
Right.
You can't beat
That's how we
that.
all do it.
You can't beat that.
Oh,
You
jeez,
gotta.
bro. Dang, got to do an LS
There
swap.
ain't never no money for these trucks, so you just break
Right.
stuff, and
Right.
then you come
Oh,
up with
jeez.
it. The
Yeah.
universe gets out of your way when you start breaking stuff, and you just want to like go hard on your build, and then you just end up finding a way to do it, and like I
Yeah.
don't know, stuff like that.
I've broken more stuff on my truck, like just driving it like an asshole. I get more comfortable and more comfortable in my Blazer, and it's like, yeah, you're going really fast. The next thing you know, you're going really fast, and you're like, man. Like one point, a couple of trips ago, we had a Desert Dimes. Good buddy of mine, JD, puts on these meets, and we went out to Johnson Valley, and dude, I was roosting it, and I actually put myself out of it. I stopped and I got out of the truck, and my buddy rolls up and he's like, "What are you doing, man?" I'm like, "Bro, I'm gonna break the shit out of this truck if I don't get out of it right now. There's just it ain't staying together. That rear end is questionable, anyways." Hey, it stayed together for like 4 more trips.
Yeah, dude.
So I got lucky.
Hell yeah. Baja
Well,
68 VW says he's got a K5. It's an old Forest Ranger one. That's pretty awesome.
oh yeah, dude, Forest Service trucks are sick, dude. Absolutely love those.
What, it's a C72C. We'll just start calling him Reckless Wrench.
Right?
I had a Spartan locker up front and would unlock the hub to turn if bro, dude, it's so horrible. Like
Right.
that's why, like, I don't know. You gotta spend some money on your lockers. Definitely.
I
Like you gotta
totally.
spend money on some gears and some lockers just to make it pleasant to go out
Yep.
wheeling. Like if you're just bashing across the whatever in the sand dunes, that ain't no big deal, but
Yeah, I wouldn't even say for the sand dunes, dude. It sucks in the sand too because it just pushes so bad. It's terrible. I wouldn't even. Yeah, I wouldn't do it again. Open or limited slip, like like a what's the clutch one? Auburn or an Aussie? Not an Aussie. You know what I'm talking about?
what,
Just
like
a limited slip with its clutch type.
what, you like just like an open diff type deal?
Well, no, like a G80, but for the front.
I don't don't know, what do they call those? Like the lunchbox lockers? I mean, I guess those really
No,
aren't
because
meant
those
to
are
be
the
slid.
little ratcheting deals. I think Auburn makes
I don't know
one.
what
I
you're
know
talking about, bro.
it's all good. It's all good. Somebody will chime in here. But yeah, Thomas, these guys are talking about 32 spline transfer cases that you can stick behind a MP208 is good. MP241C is good. The only thing about the 205, I think the stick out on the 4L80 is a little bit too long, and you have to cut it, which I'm not a fan of. I know that there's a spacer plate that you can buy for it. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me. But I think that's the whole. There's a way to do it and make it bolt up.
So how I'm doing it with my 205 to the 4L80 is I bought that advanced adapter, and you have to use a two-wheel drive 4L80, and then I think you have to have that long slip yoke, and so I think I have to trim down the
Okay.
the actual like output shaft a little bit for it to work. So I haven't actually put it all together because I sold some stuff, and so now I'm looking for another 4L80. But that's what the plan is for the 20.
Nice, dude. That'll be nice. You won't break that.
No, I don't think so.
Very quickly. Did you get the 203, 205 doubler, or you just roll in the 205?
Just 205.
I thought you were a crawler, bro.
Whatever. I got a Jeep now. So,
Well, wait, not
everybody up here is gonna like leave.
Whoa, Ruba, what? Bro,
Hey,
let me tell you something,
dude, and it drives like crap. Dude, my Jeep is the worst driving vehicle I've ever owned in my entire life. Like, I could drive an old Chevy with like this much play in the steering wheel, and it still drives better than that freaking Jeep.
It's crazy. You drive it like this though? You got your beer in one hand, and then you got your steering wheel in this finger.
I don't drive like that, brother.
You want to spill it? That's true.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea. We don't advocate this on the street. Other places, that's up to you. So I was thinking,
in Mexico, all bets are off.
Oh yeah, and Mexico's close, dude.
So Robert Kraft says C72. He's like, he said that's why you have kids. You just make them get out and unlock the hubs. He says it's a biological locker.
I'm gonna write this down, dude. That's awesome.
Biological locker.
Man.
My kid's gonna be busy if I ever start wheeling this truck again.
Oh yeah. Oh man. So I thought of something. So you're a Jeep guy now. So we'll
you gotta like put me in the.
Well, hey, you got to do the wave. You got to do the wave. The Jeep wave. You're like, hi guys, I'm a Jeep.
What's so funny about that is like, when I first got my Jeep, right, I'm rolling around and like, I'm like, hey, fuck, all these people are waving at me. And I'm like, what's going on? You know what I mean? And it's like all the time, And then like, I think the rule is like, you wave at all of them except for XJs.
Except for
you don't wave at an XJ.
If you have a unibody, you're not part of the family.
No, not at all.
It's not a Jeep.
Look at Robert Kraft. He's calling me a traitor. Dude, that's messed up.
Oh, he's right.
I did go.
Okay, so I have an idea.
Like 8
we
months
should have
working on a square, so whatever.
You needed a break. So okay, here's my idea. So when you come down, I'm assuming you're probably not going to drive a square body down that far, right?
Only if I can park it in your shop and you put a link set up on it.
Well, we'll talk about that. But if you drive, if by chance you drive the, sorry, I just see these guys. If you drive that Jeep down, we're gonna have to have a crawl contest with the Ethel and your Jeep.
Oh
and
yeah, for sure.
We will see who's slower because I know what the crawl ratio is in my truck, and I know what it is in your truck. So we're gonna see.
Mine's 410s. Mine's
same.
410s with 4-to-1, and I think the first gear ratio. I think it's something like maybe it might be like 3 or 4-to-1, somewhere around there.
So I got 6.34.
It's all good, bro.
Yeah, mine's 634, 2.72, and then 410. That's 64-to-1. So at least from the older Rubicons, I was about the same. I think those are 66-to-1, but I'll just go into my tune and turn my idle down to like 200 RPMs.
There you go. There you go.
And then we'll see who can do a burnout the longest.
Hey guys,
will the Jeep do burnouts?
This video, make sure you hit that like button, smash it, drive your truck through it, do something.
You could stroke it.
You could stroke. What are you trying to stroke there, Steve? Oh, dude, get out of here, man.
Wait. Arr, no.
You're crazy. You're crazy. Yeah, what is
Sorry,
that thing behind you? What is that?
this is a
Is that your like sipping stick? You're like something like that.
this is for something for you to not worry about. No, it's a it's a telescope. So I got that for my dad, dude.
It
I
looks
cleaned
like
that
a
thing.
piece of PV or EBS pipe or something hanging out there.
It's my ass bong, you know. That's when I want to get drunk really fast. We put like 4 beers in that sumbitch, and it's
Oh,
all
bro,
over
I
after that.
know. I'm almost out of beers here.
All
I've been drinking them too fast. All right, let's see what we got going on in the
right,
chat.
all right.
Thomas saved 300. I've got a 205 currently, but I don't think it's a round pattern. Cutting the shaft down is easy, but I can't just bolt up a different case.
So I think I know what he's talking about. So you have the figure 8 pattern, and then you have the circle 6 pattern.
Right.
Excuse me. Boofer. We have a boofer.
Bruh.
Dude, that's Northwest Fab. That's the one I was talking about. That you don't have to trim anything. Anyways, there's some more details there, but so along the lines of that 205 pattern, I think ORD can re-drill the round pattern into the case, and then they put all thread in the extra bolt holes at the bottom. Don't quote me on that. Steven's probably gonna be pissed off. By the way, we work with them a lot. We love those guys. They're fantastic. They build great stuff. We just want to get out there some way and go play with them in the rocks. But yeah, if you guys better bro, you know what? I don't know. Are we gonna be able to keep doing this? You keep bringing that damn Jeep.
I don't know, man. I think it's just going downhill from here.
It just
last episode ever.
first last, first in, last out. Oh man.
All right, so you want to get into some of the stuff we got going on here?
For sure, dude. For sure. You want to run with it, or you want me to drill?
Yeah, go for it, brother. Well, actually, I'll start it off. So we're gonna talk about LS swaps, like my particular LS swap. So when I first did my LS swap on the K5, I didn't really have the luxury of having a whole bunch of LS parts laying around. I think I had like an intake and some injectors and some stuff like that. So I didn't really have a lot of stuff like I do now. Like I got like so many LS parts just like chilling in my garage. I could probably like whip up an LS engine out of something that I have in here. But I would say like the true cost for me was about $5,000. What are you laughing at?
Fucking Robert's. It's cracking me up, dude. These guys, Bill and Robert. We have a boofer free zone here. Boofer equals a butt bong. I'm sorry, man. That's just bad. I couldn't help myself on that one.
We can't continue.
Oh, geez. Okay, something about a $500 something.
I don't even know where I'm at right now.
Oh, what happened?
Anyway, so we're getting back on subject of how much it costs to actually do an LS swap when you're trying to do it on a budget. So I would say throw your budget out, whatever your budget is. Like, I'd start with like $5,000. I'm not exactly sure you could spend less than that and actually do it right. You know?
I'm like 5,600 on mine, but I think I had to buy more shit than you did.
Yeah, right.
All the front accessories, throttle body, alternator, power steering pump. I didn't have to buy a water pump. I had to do a harness, fuel pump. I mean, everything.
Well, I mean, you got to do that stuff anyway. So, the cool thing about mine is, so like, I spent $1,100 and I got an LS1 with pretty much everything except for intake, and I got the wiring harness for an M6 F-body Camaro, and so I thought I was set. But when I got home, I started tearing it apart. The cam was toast. One of the lifters was like completely busted. Like I don't exactly know what happened up in there, and the block had actually been welded down by the number 8 cylinder. And the bolt was stripped. I couldn't fix it. I took it to, a machine shop. They couldn't fix it. And so the, I had to just start looking around because the block was just like a useless piece of aluminum. You know what I'm saying? So then I ended up picking a 4.8 complete front drive accessories, like top to bottom, complete, $200. This dude posted it on Craigslist.
Dang.
He's like, I get home at 5 o'clock. The first one that's here gets it. So like me and my heavy line technician at work, like we loaded up, we went to his grandma's house and we loaded up a freaking cherry picker. We drove over there and we were the first ones. And like by the time we were done loading up, like 5 people like showed up, and we had it.
Wow.
And so it was cool because I used the crank and the rods out of the LS1, and then I used the pistons out of the 4.8 to basically just make a high compression 5.3. So that was pretty good. So the only thing I really had the machine shop do was just put some cam bearings in, and so like it was pretty minimal as far as my cost. I mean, the rest was just labor, But then you figure like you got bearings and you got rings and you got all that other stuff.
Question on that one. So did you have to have the rotating assembly balanced, or did you just like weigh the pistons and match it up, or?
I didn't do none.
Oh wow! So what's? You're a brave man, but I suppose
so that is the engine that's in the K10 that was in the K5. That
wow.
Did all the donuts that I just bounce off the limiter. I trust my tuner, and I beat the crap out of it, and I haven't had any issues. Now the weight and like the pistons, I mean, obviously, you know, it's like 3.898 on an LS1, and then I'm not exactly sure what the spec is on a 5.3, but it I don't know, it turned out to just work out, and it makes good power, and
that's hot rodding, man. That's hot rodding. You slam some parts together and it works, and if it doesn't blow up in the first 5 seconds, then you're good.
So does anybody know the actual difference between a 4.8 and a 5.3? Let me know. I'm gonna look in the comments real quick here. Let's see, Robert Kraft. I wanted reliability and to be able to incorporate stuff that was gone from the engine bay to go back with cruise and stuff. Yeah, you can do that with LS stuff. I don't know. I do drive by cable, so I don't really have that, but I don't care. It drives so good. Who cares? So anyways, on to the next stuff. You want to talk about your harness? How did you do your harness, Steve?
So I went on to this site that probably everybody knows by now. I think it's like LT1 Swap.
Okay.
Yeah, so that guy had. So if I don't know if everybody knows, my truck's a Gen 4. So I have a electric throttle body E38 computer, and it's hooked up to a manual, which is not supposed to work, but it does. Anyways, I bought a harness for $85 on eBay. It was a brand new van harness, and I was like, "Sweet, this is gonna plug right in. It'll be great. And I can put the dang computer wherever I want." There was like 6 feet of extra cable there, or wire, that I still haven't trimmed out. I just looped it back and forth. It looks terrible, but it works. And the only thing that it didn't have was the AFM plug. So it's like, whatever, I don't need active fuel management or DOD or whatever you want to call it anyways. Everything else works. That took me about 8 hours to like really clean it up and make it to where it looked right and everything. The biggest thing for me was I put all my stuff through one of those Eaton Bussmann RFRM fuse blocks. It's actually double the size of an RFRM. So there's a 16 circuit fuse block that they sell, and then they have like a 40 or 32 or whatever, and it's huge. Like, and I still haven't had any problems with having to add circuits and stuff to it, and it's all waterproof and everything. So that's a pretty slick deal. It's kind of hard to mount when it comes through the back, so I might change that, but otherwise it's pretty simple setup, and I didn't do anything special as far as wiring. I hacked a stock harness up.
Right on. We better get back in the chat. So Robert Kraft is saying that you can use a 95 plus GM truck cruise box, and I think that's probably similar to like the F box.
Oh yeah,
like in that.
It's the little wire thing.
It has that deal that comes off of it. And then so C72C says, because I asked the difference between a 4.8 and a 5.3, and he says flat pistons versus slightly dished with a plus sign. Yeah, that is a difference, but there's more to it. Anyhow, and then
stroke.
Cesar Taco says 4.8's got flat tops and 5.3's didn't. That is true, but so the only difference between a 5.3 and a 4.8 is the crank, the rods, and the pistons. So the pistons are the same size, but the rods are longer on a 4.8. Are you you messing with your shaft over there? Anyways,
I'm just talking about strokes.
The rods are longer on a 4.8, and the crank is shorter. That's it. So I can.
What do you mean by shorter?
I could pull up 2 right now and show you.
You should.
We'll get going on the electrical wiring, how you do yours, or talk about whatever. And I'm gonna go grab them so we can put them side by side so everybody can see what the difference is. All right.
All right, so guys, this is what I ended up doing. I don't have any pictures of it, but basically, I used a 100 amp continuous duty relay that you can buy at Napa for my main power switching. So I went from the OEM like square body harness, and I kept the two of them split. So I go ignition when the key's on. That powers up the fuel pump and computer relays and everything, and the main fuse block for the LS. So like all my injectors and my plug, my coils and all that stuff. That's all on the fuse block with that main big giant relay. So I feed that. Basically, the rest of it goes through the body, just like normal. So all the harness, all of your accessories and stuff work. And I did that because I wanted to keep all of the ground planes kind of split. So like the one thing on an LS motor is all of your grounds in the harness for your sensor grounds need to be in the same physical location. You want to keep from having a thing called ground offset. And when that happens, you'll get kind of weird readings. And this happens a lot with widebands. When you're tuning in HP tuners, you'll get an erroneous reading on it. Anyways, we can go into that more detail later. But look at this. What the heck is that?
So this is a crap. I don't even know what I'm doing here. All right, so this is a 4.8.
Oh, okay.
Right? So and then this is the 5.3 rod that I just took apart. So that
okay.
That like is the shit. Hold on, you can't even tell. Hold on, let me screw this in. Screw this.
Way to go, Dave.
I know, right?
Screw it up, Dave.
Carry on, everybody. Carry on. I'm just over here messing around.
Where's that boofer? Somebody needs it.
Right. Play with your freaking whatever that thing is over there. All right. So, anyways, that is that is it's not much, but that's
interesting.
That's the difference. So
the 4.8 rod's longer.
4.8 rod's longer, yeah. So you can see that there in the background, like see it. Yeah. So that's it. It's not much, but it's longer.
Are those Gen 3 or Gen 4 rods?
This is a Gen 4 rod right here. This is what came out of
that. Look
that.
at how beefy this thing is.
Yeah, and so interestingly enough, you can use like a rod like this, which is this is a Gen 3 rod and piston, and so it's like all pressed in. So
okay, no pins, no circlips.
Yeah, no pins, no C-clips. You can actually use this rod on a floating piston. So that's what I was able to do. So I used Gen 3 rods on a floating piston, and you can do that. Yeah, I don't know, it works out. But on this one here, you see it has like a like a bushing in it.
Yeah.
So, and then this one is just pressed.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Who knew? You learn something new every day.
Everybody knows.
So let's see what's going on in the chat here.
I was on the forum the other day checking something out, and it was like somebody said something stupid, and I was like, man, there's a lot of bad information out there.
Yeah, that's actually something we were talking about, guys, is, the forums are a great place for the most part, but there are some forums, and I don't actually have specific examples of this, but I mean, it's not even forums, it's just the whole internet in general. Sometimes people put out bad information, and it leads you kind of off the beaten path where you need to be in order to make this a successful swap. And that's kind of the whole driving factor behind this, is we want to see these trucks on the road more. And the only way that happens is, people that aren't as savvy or not, maybe not as interested in trying to get deep and dirty with it, they got to have a place to where they can go to get the correct information. And that's like what we're trying to do here, is make that a reality for a lot of people, where it just goes past the quick, we talked about it for 5 minutes and moved on to the next subject thing. It's like, throughout our existence here, we're going to try and cover each one of these things: engine, wiring, cooling, fuel system, transmission, all that stuff.
Sometime and just talk about some stuff.
Yeah.
That's like, because I get a lot of questions, especially through my YouTube channel, like, how to wire a relay, how to do stuff like that, how to do,
right.
What I mean? And so, like, I think it's like good information to get into, and it's funny. So Robert Kraft was saying, that Pirate 4x4 is a good example of that, but the one thing about Pirate is that they have a lot of good information on there.
Right.
But if you're a newcomer or something and you ask a question, it's like you just get freaking lit up. You know, like that grumpy old man guy comes out and he's like, "You don't know what you're talking about," and you know, like you're just like, I just like am asking like just a simple question, and so that's one of the reasons why I like Chevy K5Blazer.com, because everybody's just kind of kicks back.
Super chill.
And you're saying that CK5 is like that now, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, there is some changing of the guard over there, and they've definitely stepped it up. And I mean, obviously, I'm on that site, so I'm partial to it. But yeah, lots of good stuff on there. And you know, the key thing here is you know, if at the minimum we are able to enable you to ask the right questions when you're searching for them. And that's a big thing. Is sometimes these things are not that dang simple.
No, you know, it's funny. Robert Kraft is like, just ask Dave. Dude, you guys, I swear to God, like, you guys would be amazed by like the emails I get, and people are like, "Hey, can you give me like a parts list of everything you use for your swap?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, you have to do a little bit of due diligence.
Right.
You know, like, I'm gonna help you out a little bit. Like, you know, if you're like, "Hey, man, how did you run that?" and I'll tell them, but it's like, I'm not gonna give you, because I don't even remember what parts I use. You know what I mean? Like, I used an L92 water pump. The rest of the stuff I just kind of threw together. Who knows? You know.
Hey, so right here, Thomas saved 300. He's saying, "I'm sure there'll be additional costs. I'm so close to just dropping my square body on a Tahoe rolling chassis for 2K and running and driving. It eliminates a lot of issues." Yeah, but it does actually create a bunch as well when you're trying to do that, because now you're trying to integrate the whole IFS GMT 400, or excuse me, GMT 800 chassis with the square body, and the body mounts don't line up, and BCM. Yeah, I mean, you can take the BCM with the ECM, and that will help you with some things without, you don't have to remove VATs. You keep cruise. There's a bunch of other little stuff that you can retain with that, but it's not necessary with a Gen 3. Gen 4, it's not necessary. I don't have a BCM. I don't even have a TC. There's no speed signal going to my computer. It has no idea what. Yeah, it doesn't care. It doesn't care.
It don't care. I ran AC with it and everything. It don't matter. You know,
it's like, it'll stall. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
So, he was saying a chassis swap is a huge price. Like, I would say, like, swapping the chassis would be a lot more intricate, especially putting it on like a late model Tahoe or something like that. Like, that would be a lot more work. And then what are you going to do with the dash? Are you going to like mold the dash in there so you can have the new dash? I mean, like, all that stuff would just be like, there'd be like so much fab work tied up in there. When like a square body, you just pop the engine in, harness, route your fuel system, and do burnouts. Right?
Oh, I'm so down with burnouts.
Yeah.
Just make sure you do them before you replace the tires.
Bill Arrow had to say it. Come and swap.
Okay, if you want a 240 horsepower engine and a boat anchor, that's cool, bro. I'm joking. So Cummins motors are cool when they're turned way the hell up. If you're not making, like, you just dropped another 400 pounds on the front of this truck that doesn't need any more weight into it. Because I actually played with this a lot, and I tow a lot. My truck now tows a lot. So it's not that I tow heavy, it's just towing often. And yeah, the Cummins is cool. My buddy, I actually got a truck. I had a 93 extra cab long bed 2-wheel drive D250 that I had got from a buddy of mine, and I gave it back to him after I drove the Cummins for a week. The gas mileage is fantastic, but when you're tacked out and friggin' 83 miles an hour is as fast as the thing will go, because the mechanical governor, that's it. You know, it's 2,800 RPM or whatever it is. You know, stock Cummins motors, they're slow. There's a tractor motor. I'm not saying that it can't be more than that, but what I am saying is, you spend all that money to try and make that thing peppier and more fun and all this other stuff, you still have more weight, you still have a longer motor, you still have problems with the intercooler in the placement. You got to cut the you got to cut the core support out, the grill to fit all this crap. The LS stuff bolts in. It's 300 horsepower on a bad day, and if you want more of it, I will argue the Turbo LS, yes, it may not get as good a mileage. Kenny just put down 550 foot-pounds to the tire on E85. That's 7 pounds of boost. That will walk. Pounds. That's it, dude. Damn. And that's with an eBay turbo. It's a VS Racing 69 mil turbo. That thing spools right now And if he on 14 pounds, he put down 692 foot-pounds to the tire.
Dang, bro.
And he didn't gain 400 pounds. So he's still
What
using an iron
is
block.
it 5.3?
It's a 6.0 that's completely
6.0.
bone stock. The rings are not even gapped.
No. Well, it's a used motor though.
Oh yeah, it's got like 100,000 on it, so it could be.
That's perfect for a turbo. You know, at that point, everything's kind of.
Yeah, it's probably 20,000s on the gap. But anyways, I mean, what I'm getting at is Cummins is cool, but it takes the fun out of it. It's not the same. I love diesel motors, guys. Don't get me wrong. I love the Cummins, but unless you're going to tow fucking 10,000 pounds or more on a daily basis, I don't think it pays off on the swap. I'll argue that forever. We can go crawling, and I'll show you what.
One day I might do one, but I mean, for right now, like the LS stuff, it's
great.
It's
great.
Like seriously, just to put it in the truck, all I need is that advanced adapters plate, and then bang. Like you don't. It puts it exactly. It puts the back of the transmission, the bell housing, exactly where it was when it was started, exactly where the small block was. And it's like nothing else changes, you know. So then you could run that. You could run the turbo 350. You could run the turbo 400. And like I've never actually had one of these in a square body that actually had an overdrive. And I've been super happy with it. I think like that trip I was telling you about where I went to Sand Hollow, I was riding with my buddy who had a Jeep on 37s, and we ended up getting about the same mileage. You know what I mean? So it's like, and he had overdrive and stuff. So.
Yeah, and mine gets 19 on gasoline. So, and at 70 miles an hour.
Well, you know, half of the Reckless Wrench, he's saying a Duramax swap. That might be a better option.
You know what? I think that's probably a better option. One, because you get VGT, you get a V8, you get 300 horsepower no matter what. And you know what? There is just, no worries. Hey, Bill, it's all good, brother. This is the thing about these trucks. Like, you could put like 5 different motors in here. You know what? If we're going to put a Cummins in here, we might as well just stick a Perkins diesel. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's all good. It's old school friggin' like Perkins, dude. I don't even know that much about it. I just seen it once. Or a Detroit 453T, 6V92, or 6V53.
Yeah.
I'll make all kinds of noise.
I think basically what Steve's getting at is like for the stuff that we're doing, romping around in the desert, doing stuff like that, trying to get a few extra miles per gallon. Like, you know, I know obviously you could probably get more with the Cummins, but how much more work is it? I don't know. Yeah. You know, I haven't done one. But, you know, like our goal is to talk about the swaps that we did and try to help other people out with it. So on that note,
JZ, oh my God.
JZ swap forever. Come on, Rob.
Really? You know what? I'm going to put a B18 in my truck, 10,000 RPM B18 with a big turbo.
What did he say? Chinese choo-choo?
Yeah, choo-choo boy. Hey, that's the freaking VS Racing turbo, man. That's all Denma is talking about, the choo-choo boy. That's what I'm going to do, man. Freaking turbocharge my daily driver. I told my buddy a long time ago, I was like, you know what? I just want to ride 600 horsepower on my daily. Like, that's not a big deal for an LS. Like, it doesn't care.
Bro,
and it's on the freeway, so it's not in boost all the time.
It ain't a big deal. That's the cool
I'll
thing.
have to,
you could run just like a big baby cam with a turbo, throw like 15 pounds of boost at it, and you're there, and it's got good street manners.
Oh my God. AC, it idles, it starts when it's cold. Like, it's kind of a weird concept.
Baja 68 VW, I don't know what he's talking about.
What? Get out of here with this freaking Coyote crap.
Stupid Ford thing.
What the turbo? What?
All right, let's get back on it here. So basically, I just wanted to break down, like, when you're doing an LS swap, some of the things that you have to look into, and like we're not going to get down to the weeds and stuff, but you know, obviously you got your engine. It's a crapshoot. You never know what you're going to get. You got your harness. You got to figure out what you're going to do. So in my case, I got that
crapshoot too.
that M6 harness. I just took out all the wires that I wanted, unpinned everything, and then I ran it through the firewall, and then I repinned it back into all the connectors. So that worked out for me. Like, I'm not a big fan of splicing harnesses, and even like soldering, because you know, solder in an engine compartment, it'll break. So
actually, can I jump in there? Actually, yeah. You bring up a really good point. So I'm really anti-solder and anti-splice. So the way that GM built these, there is a couple Y splices in the grounds and some other stuff that are in series, but they're like, for example, electronic throttle motors absolutely become pains in the ass when you start to have problems with wiring and like, for example, I spliced some of my pedal wires because I didn't have the tools to add it back into the harness in the ECU pin, and we basically I found out on accident that it tracks the amperage. So there's a code that gives you a dead pedal, so it goes in like a limp mode. So it tracks the amperage, and if it's off a little bit, it'll throw this code. So for like the longest time, that was gross, Dave. For like the longest time, my thing would disconnect. So I went and I bought a bunch of wire from Wire Barn, which was actually a super good deal. Wire Barn, they're not a sponsor from us or anything, but they sell legit TXL and SXL wire. There's a difference between those. We'll explain that in a later video. But wire, good crimpers, and good terminals, big deal for everything.
Yeah.
None of this butt connector crap.
No.
You just don't mess with it. Weather Pack, Metro Pack, or the Molex type stuff on the newer connections. Just run a new wire. It's not that expensive, and it's way
what
faster.
I like to do too, and like one of the things that like I would, maybe it'll help somebody out, but like I'll go when I'm at the wrecking yard, I'll just pull, like if I see a harness that's, just a couple connectors cut off, I'll just grab that harness while I'm there because, I paid $5-10 for it. And then if I need a wire for a harness that I'm doing, you could just take the wire out and it's already got the connectors on both ends. So you can just take it, pin it out of the plug, put it in your PCM, or, take the PCM side out and then put the other end wherever you're going with it. And then you have like an unspliced wire. You don't have to worry about all that. And then actually when I worked at Chevy, as far as like those pedal assemblies go, like there was like I think it was like some kind of bulletin or something, but when they actually did the fix for that wiring, it was just straight butt connectors. There was no solder or nothing like that. So
yeah.
And
it's actually proven that if you a crimped connection is better for the wire than a soldered connection because it doesn't melt the insulation back. It also doesn't get a heat, affected area in the wire there, which creates more resistance, and it just is not the right way to do it. So Robert mentioned something here. He goes, proper OEM style crimping is the way to go. And he's right. There's the tools out there, Waytech Wire, Wire Barn, Pro Wire USA, I think is another one. There's a lot of places where you can get good quality stuff to do it the right way and not janky. There's no excuse now, and I'm talking about, I'm out too. There's no excuse now.
I got one more.
Crappy wiring.
I'm at my limit because if I drink one more, then like this whole thing will go poop downhill.
I don't know what you're talking about. That couldn't possibly happen.
We don't need that.
Let's see here. What else we got going on here? So they're talking about 8.1s, the big brothers of the LS motor.
Yeah, Senor Taco, he's actually doing I think I was talking with him earlier. He actually picked up an 8.1 cheaper than a frickin' 6-liter.
Wow, that's amazing.
6-liter, everybody's like, oh yeah, frickin' at least.
It's a race motor, bro.
Yeah, right.
Race. Yeah, 8.1s, 455 foot-pounds. That'll break parts.
That's everybody's thing.
Yeah.
Remember on the old small blocks? Like, it's Corvette engine, man.
Yeah, dude. It's got camel.
It's a Corvette engine. Anyways, all right. So, electrical wiring, fuse box relays, battery cables, all that stuff you got to think about. Radiator hoses, heater hoses, electrical fan setup. How you going to set that up? In my case, I used a 98 Windstar Ford fan setup, so I do have
a what? Wait, who?
A Ford.
Wait, say that again.
98 Windstar Ford.
Oh, so you're trying to say that you don't want to do Coyote, but you got Ford?
Bro, it's a janky Ford though.
Oh man, like, you couldn't have gone with the Mark III set? No, I'm just messing with you. No, they work
cheap. No, but it actually works really good.
Yeah.
It actually it fits so good that it actually is like right up against like where the sides of the tanks are, and it's just it's like a perfect fit. Intake plumbing, you got to figure that out. And like I would advise you like on these square bodies, and you've probably seen it too since you do tuning. Is that the IATs in this engine bay they're just like horrible. So I would
under the battery tray.
Yeah, I would pump something to the side and try to like box it off and maybe pull some of that fresh air in from the inside or from a fender or something like that because the IATs suck. And then we got to get into the fuel system on here. Let's check the chat before we get into that. What is he talking? What's Robert's crap? He's talking about like a freaking motorcycle or something. I can't even do
Mark,
that.
what's happening? Ethel's doing good, brother.
And Hosto, what's up, brother? I got a 5.3. What should I do to it? Sorry, late to the. It's all right, brother. It's all right. I don't know what do you want to do to it? You tell us. You tell us. Robert Kraft, LS Swap it. So anyhow, so the as far as the fuel setup, like I think the fuel setup hangs most people up more than probably anything. So I don't know. There's so much to it. I would just say plan on buying a new baffled tank. And but see, you're doing it different than I'm doing it. So like I'm doing it two ways. So like on the K5 and K10, I put a late model pump in there and I altered the tank so it actually has the bucket in it. And right now on this truck, I'm using a K5 tank, but it's got a baffle, and I'm using like an 87 up tank with the baffle and an 87 up cinder with a high pressure pump, so that kind of takes care of me there. But you're actually in, which it's funny because I've got a lot of questions about that. They're talking about the saddle tanks, pulling the fuel, using the switcher valve. So you want to like touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm very not traditional. So mine has no baffling. The only time that's really a problem is if it's below an eighth of a tank. And because I think partially because of it's a manual, so it sloshes the fuel to the back and to the front when you take off. And I actually have seen on the wideband it go lean. But if it has a quarter tank or more, that hasn't been an issue for me crawling off road or being stupid on road. But know that you watch the fuel gauge slosh. The fuel's sloshing. There's ways around that, with a like a fuel mat or something like that from Holley. There's plenty of ways, baffling, buckets. There's things you could stick in the tank.
Have you actually used or known somebody that has used that Holley blanket, a fuel blanket?
I have not.
Because that's the interesting thing to me. So it's like a strip like this big is almost the same amount as a tank. So with that baffled tank,
right?
So it's like, what way do you want to go?
True. I do know, like, Scott has a EP. He's got the TBI tank on his K5, and he still had some sloshing stuff going on. So I think that the main thing there is that you can pick up fuel when there's almost nothing in the tank. So that's a key difference is, if the thing is like lean forward or something like that, it's a long tank. You're still not going to get the fuel. But if that fuel mat touches the ends, well then you might actually pick it up. And I don't know how it works. I think it's got some crazy membrane type thing going on there. So, we could go off of that for a while, but that'll leave up to you guys to figure out. But on the switch valve, so I'm using a Airtex E2000, I think is what it is. And I pull through the switch valve.
I'm surprised you're going to use some eBay fuel pump.
I might have bought it on eBay. Because it's crappy. It doesn't flow enough for the E85, I could tell you that. So I'm using a, what is it, the little nylon Dorman fuel line adapters, or the actual fuel line, the correct quick disconnect stuff on all that.
Is that like the barbed end that fits over with the little clamp on it?
Yeah, with the little squeeze clamp.
Yeah.
And then I use fuel injection hose clamps that are rated for the pressure, and then the hose is rated for 100 psi. And coincidentally, it's a S10 2.2 fuel filter / regulator, and then it came out to 62 psi is what I get. So on gasoline, this works fantastic. On E85, it runs out of fuel at about 6,000. Coincidentally, my limiter is at 6,200, so it does go pretty lean at the top end, but it hasn't hurt it yet.
So just to be clear, you're pulling it through the old school switch valve, old school tanks.
So I have an E85 tank on one side, and I have 91 on the other side, and I switch between them pretty often, and I haven't had a single problem with it. And I actually think the switch valve is even going bad, and it's still been legit. Like I was not switching it on purpose because I was afraid that it would lose its prime. It hasn't been an issue. I switch it when the motor is off, and then I turn it on, and then the trims go, crazy for a little bit when it's going from the different fuel, but it never like burbles or coughs or idles funny or anything. And I've been doing
that's interesting though, because like I guess if you're pulling the fuel through it as opposed to building pressure, because those those pumps, they build the pressure and then they actually hold the pressure once it's primed.
Right. It's got a
So
check valve.
I guess that the way you're doing is probably like the more correct way, because I would imagine like, a 60 psi pump would probably take that valve out, or it probably start.
Oh yeah,
Eventually.
it's not doesn't it. So it's kind of funny because I don't really know what the valve is rated for in flow, but my truck's not slow and it's not running lean. I tune my own stuff, so I know for sure if it was a fuel pump related problem, like I would have seen it a long time ago. So it's been working for me for about 50,000 miles. I think I beat on it pretty hard.
That's
You
pretty
know,
good.
send it right. I mean, if it blows up tomorrow, that would suck, but it hasn't shown me that.
Still gonna send it.
Yeah, right. Let's see what these guys got going. They're talking about cams.
These guys are just like helping each other out in the chat. They're just like, bro,
That is
just do it.
awesome.
I think somebody asked about a spring kit, but I'm kind of curious, like if he's like what cam he's going with, or maybe
BTR,
he's
Texas
talking about
Speed.
lowering springs. I don't even know at this point. But
You just cut them, bro. Put them some cinder blocks on there. Heat them up.
Oh, yeah, it's lowered a car with a Dremel. I cut the springs with a Dremel.
That sounds so miserable.
I did. I went through like 30 of those little blades. I just don't know. I might go down and buy a grinder, but I don't even know if Harbor Freight was around then. But.
Nice. You're dating yourself here. Torque is your friend on the fofo.
Yeah. Okay,
Stick,
so this is another
stick.
question I get a lot, and we're totally getting off topic of our LS swap stuff, but a lot of people ask what cam to go with, what cam can I get torque out of, and what cam, and like, maybe one day we'll have like a special guest that like really is like a cam expert, but in all of my experience, like you're never ever going to get the 500 to 2500, 500 to 3000 torque just a stock cam. Like, like all the other cams for the most part, yeah, I mean if there's actually enough cam to actually gain up top with torque and horsepower, you're moving that curve up.
Yeah.
And if you're just using it for a tow rig or just, going camping with it or driving it back and forth to work, long tube headers, a tune, and stock cam is the way to go.
Right. Hey, this is our buddy Mark Thompson. He's actually my one of my customers' brothers. I don't know if Jake messaged you about. He never coated all your. Tell him to get a freaking bottle of WD-40 on that shit so it doesn't rust and break apart. Yeah.
Mark Thompson, what's up, bro?
He's over there in Tennessee.
Dang.
Yeah, they moved the truck, man. Oh yeah, brother. It's good to see you guys. Hey, tell Jake I said hi. So, did you guys ever see the what do we call it? The JT Monster truck? It's a step-side 78. It's got a roll bar in the back. It's white. It's a badass truck, man. It's been a while since I posted pictures of it, just because I hadn't heard from these guys. But it's a super cool. It's got a four-speed 465 and a turbo. A small block, just a bone stock small block with some headers. And when they brought me the truck, I pulled it in my yard, and my kid was in the passenger seat, and we didn't have seatbelts on. I was just pulling in, getting ready to do this, and I have like a little bit of a rounded curb, and I hit it probably 5 miles an hour, and it bounced me into the roof, and I was like, oh shit. And my kid was like 3 years old at the time, and he goes, shit, daddy. And I was like, oh no, don't say that. I was like, oh crap.
Hey, so,
well, I'm glad that you guys are doing good over there.
Somebody asked a question, is there a reason for the 5250 crossover point?
As far as I know, it has something to do with how torque and horsepower are calculated, because it's calculated over a certain period of time. So torque is the measurement of the actual work being done, and horsepower is how quick it's happening. I think it's horsepower multiplied by RPM, or excuse me, RP. I don't remember how you do it. It's online. I know it has something to do with that. What else we got?
I don't know. Let's get back into it. So we were talking about the fuel tank setup. So, figuring out your lines, I mean, that's additional cost unless you're going to run like the stock metal lines too, just some ANs or however you're going to do it. Then you got your transmission stuff. So I'll just touch on this briefly. We'll get into it further in a later video. But, if you're using an old school manual, you don't need to have a speed sensor, none of that. If you're using an old school auto, turbo 350, 400, no need for a speed sensor on that.
Yep.
On the
Or an MV 4500. You don't need one either.
Yeah, no. So 465, 4500, you don't need that. The new autos, 4L60, 4L65, 4L80, whatever, you got to have the VSS in order to make it work. So
I can jump on that real quick. Both the 4L60 has an output speed sensor, and a 4L80 has an input and an output speed sensor built into it.
Right.
So generally speaking, you're not going to end up needing, with the 4L80 swap, as far as I know, you don't need to install a speed sensor in the transfer case unless you want to know what your actual, your speeds are. On the 4L60, it is helpful to have a speed sensor in the transfer case. I could be wrong on this. I haven't done the swap, but I know a lot of guys end up putting the speed sensor in the transfer case so that they have road speed. And when you shift into 4Low with the 4L60 or the 4L80, you should be able to, it needs to know that you just doubled the gear ratio if you're going to want this thing to shift correctly.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why you would do it, is you have speed at the drive shaft at the transfer case, and speed at the transmission, and they're not the same. So that's what the switch is for.
And I think ORD actually on their website, they actually you can send them your adapter, and then they will make that happen for you. And it's actually pretty inexpensive. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, it's a couple $100, but I mean, it's worth it because, I went trying to find all the 241 speed sensor stuff because I have the first year 241 with the mechanical drive, and it's exorbitantly expensive. You get to get tone ring and all this. There's a couple $100 just in the parts.
Anyway.
So yeah.
That's crazy. So Senior Taco was saying horsepower times 5250 equals RPM.
Yep.
Is that true?
Yes, that sounds right.
Is it? Good job, Senior
That's why
Taco.
See?
I'm gonna be featuring your truck on the next live video that I do on my channel too. So I sent a thing out for people to send me their trucks because I want to talk about them. Because I'm so curious about what people are building. So anyways, let's get back on it. So then, if you're doing an LS swap, you're changing your transfer case, you got to do drive line, so that's an additional cost.
Right.
Exhaust, you're gonna have to change your exhaust, so you probably have some junky ass stuff, and maybe you have something good, but you're still gonna need to alter that. And then when you're done with that, you got to tune it. So that's
save $1,000 for tuning at least. Just FYI, if you want the thing to run good, it's amazing what you can get out of a stock LS. They're really neutered from the factory.
Yeah, and I don't know, honestly, I feel and I know you do tuning, but my boy Joe has been tuning forever, and it's I just tell him what's up with it, he tunes it, and it's good. Or even if there's an issue later, he just hops in, we go around the block, we just drive around a little bit, and then it's just done for me. And I don't think a lot of people have that, and I think a lot of people get nervous about that because they're just trusted some dude that's doing it out of their garage wherever they're living.
Yeah.
And, you never know, how good they are, So.
I'll give you a story about that. We have a shop in Irvine. I work with Robert's Custom Trucks, and so we do LS swaps and all that kind of stuff. And we've gone through a couple tuners, and that's kind of the reason why I tune, because I'm one of those guys. Okay, I'm one of those guys where if I can do it myself, I will. And I'll pay somebody to do it, but if they don't do it how I want them to do it, and what I mean by that is complete. And not having finicky stuff going on and having to do stupid stuff to make the truck run right or whatever. I'm trying to make sure that stuff's done right because these people are paying a lot of money for it, So that's why I do my own stuff. But you guys over here, what's going on, Senior Taco? Sounds like you got a good guy to buy. Yeah, you know what? Oh, Robert's talking here about Tuesdays and Thursdays for tacos, which sounds actually really good right now. Even though I had ribs, it was really good. So yeah, cam, head, and tune. So it depends on what you're going to use it for. If you guys are going to be roosting on it and just having a good time and not really doing any kind of towing or really low speed crawling, and there's a caveat there. If you have gear for it, it doesn't matter as much. But if you're going to be roosting on it, dunes or doing street racing or pre-running or whatever, heck yeah, a cam, dude, man, a cam can make 100 or more horsepower difference up top, especially above 4,000 RPM. But like Dave touched on before, you're giving it up at the bottom. There's only I think there's only one cam that I've heard of, and this is just recently, that made 20 foot-pounds more torque than the stock cam, and that was it. It made 40 foot-pounds, it made 40 horsepower more in the mid range than the stock cam did, and another 100 on top. But that's a single cam.
Yeah, but
If
what's
you
it
guys,
doing at 25 though?
well, it made 20 foot-pounds more torque down low.
At 25? Oh, really?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that
So
that
that
Thule
was
cam?
that NSR cam. It's no springs required. It's a truck cam. They just came out with it. I don't know what the part number is, but it's like the first cam that I've ever heard of being more torquey than a stock 5.3 LM7 cam.
Damn.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, LQ4 cam, I guess, is pretty good for a stock 5.3 as well. It makes it a little bit more up top, and it doesn't lose any down low.
Yeah, like if you remember a long time ago after I did that swap in the K5 when I was like jamming up that sand dune and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That was just
Where you got the air?
Yeah, that
you
was
bounced
just
through the
an
corner?
LM7 cam. You know, it
Yeah,
was
that's
just
awesome.
stock. And like it had so much, you know, I could take off in this 465 second gear and like, I mean, it had plenty of power. And
Oh, yeah.
you know, like I definitely noticed that LS9 cam I put in here, like it like way more up top, but down low it definitely lost. And then, hey guys, so if you're, you know, curious about tuning, I know Steve here does it, and my boy Joe, who does my tuning, you can send your PCM to him as well, and he can get it tuned up for you. So just, you know, let him know what you got, and you know, I can almost assure you that you're gonna get it back and it's gonna be good to go because he's been doing it a long time. So you know, hit him up, or you know, hit Steve up because Steve does them too.
I'll
so.
hit up your buddy Joe because I don't do remote tuning. It's only
you
if I
don't?
can touch a truck. Yeah,
Oh,
and I
okay,
only
okay.
do the stuff that's at the shop. So hit up Joe.
I got
If you guys have any problems or any questions or anything, you can ask me. But Joe is going to be your guy. That's how we want to run this.
Gotcha. What are these guys talking about up in here? They're saying where they're coming from. Robert
Yeah,
Kraft,
I know
Waco,
which one he's
Texas.
talking about. Nice. Waco. There's some shit that happened back there in the day. Got tanks and stuff and flames and all that. We won't talk about that.
Yeah,
we won't talk.
don't need to get into all that.
Yeah, that 454 LS cam that he's Ramiro Mitchell's talking about. So Comp makes this cam that Richard Holdener tested, and it actually there's a couple of iterations of that test that had been done, and it's the best one I heard of was it was a 5.3, and it made 427 horsepower at the crank with only a cam and headers. Everything else was completely stock. The valve springs and everything, I think, were stock as well. No, I take that back. Valve springs got changed with the camshaft.
It has to have a crazy ramp on it, I would imagine, on the cam.
Oh, it's a rumpety cam. There's like it killed the low end, but it was a lot of power.
Wow.
So
it
it's
must have been like
that's
well, where'd it make the power at? Did you see?
well, it was like 7,200 was the limit, so it was between 4 and 7. It was a screamer, dude. That was like the most horsepower you could make without changing any other parts.
Yeah, there's actually an article on Hot Rod. I think it's Hot Rod magazine or something online. Like if you search in like you do it like
The cam test.
a Google search for like a 5.3 LS9 cam test or something. Like they test every single
All of
cam from every single LS engine in a 5.3 with headers, and every single one loses power at 25. They gain it. Like I think the LS9 cam and the LS7, like they're like 100 horsepower up top, but like you lose so much at 25. It's crazy. And then they ended up doing some comp cams and stuff, and I think even then you're still losing down low, but I mean you're definitely gaining up top, you know.
So remember I was telling you about that guy Richard Holdener?
Yeah.
He wrote that article.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he did all the article. He did that. So they've done that article a couple of times. They've changed the motor out for like a 6-liter or a 4.8 to kind of get a little bit more, you know, broad spectrum on the test. And it's literally like 4.8 to 5.3 is 30 horsepower, 40 foot-pounds. 5.3 to 6.0, 40 horsepower, 30 foot-pounds. Like it's a literal gap. Like GM must have known that that's what it was going to take to jump it that far.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyways, kind of cool. Let's see what else we got going on here on the slate.
Somebody's talking about a cookout, and it's making me hungry. That's all
I know.
see. It's the only thing I focus on is the cookout.
The
And,
food.
Like,
I seen
I
food
just
here.
wish I had some freaking. I don't know about Taco Bell, but I wish I had some
Well, yeah.
barbecue or something.
Senior Taco, the cam thing, or Robert, the cam thing was they used a Holley Dominator for that, so they didn't have to deal with the GMs, like the ECM being the thing that held it back. Let me touch on that real quick because I know we talked about this. You guys, the GM ECU is really, really good for 99.9% of everybody that's out there. There are guys making 2,000 horsepower on a GM ECU, and there's no reason why anybody that's putting a motor in a truck should not be using the GM ECU unless you have some wild-ass setup. It works really good. You'll never match the drivability and all of the conditions that GM has put it through, like cold starts and negative 40 degrees, are in the damn the tune. Negative 40. Who drives their truck when it's that cold? I know I don't. Well, I've never been in negative 40, so I don't even know how that is. But
if you unhook your temperature sender,
then it's not.
It'll think it's negative 40, and they'll dump a bunch of fuel. Ask me how I know.
I hear that's really great for anti-lag.
It's really great for like after you do like your header swap and you leave it off because you want to crank the engine. So I left mine off, and I actually unhooked the coils, and then I plugged it back in, and when I started, it was like pow pow, like it was crazy. And the cool thing was I have my camera set up, so it's actually in one of my videos. So that was pretty awesome.
That's awesome. Dave and his backfires, right on. Okay, so the question of the night: $1 million truck, Dave. What are you gonna do? And don't say Ford motor.
You guys in the live chat, I want you to think about this. If you had $1 million and like you had to build a truck with it, what truck? And don't say other than a Chevy. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, just what truck would you build? How would you build it? And what direction would you go with it? And then if you're watching this in the replay, let us know down in the comments below because we would love to hear it. And make sure you hit that like button. All right, so this is what I would do. So this might be a little long-winded, so I'm just gonna apologize up front. But so when I was a young kid, like 3-4 years old, my dad had a '72 GMC Jimmy, and my uncle had a '69 K5 Blazer, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
And they were like, at the time they were like Brohams and stuff. You know what I mean, like Primer and stuff. But I remember going to Pismo with my cousins because we lived, right down the street, and we'd always go when I was younger, and it was pretty awesome. And I remember my mom, we'd be going down one where the dips are, you'd feel your stomach drop, and she'd be like, hey, if you put your seatbelt on, you can feel the freaking roller coaster thing, so I don't know.
If you put your seatbelt on.
It was like a thing to get me to put my seatbelt on. But anyway, so I think that, I don't know about my dad's old truck, but my uncle's truck, the '69, he sold it to his sister out in Arizona, and back in like 09, 10, I tried to get it from her, and it just didn't work out, but I would try to hunt down that truck, and then I would just totally go through and restore the whole thing, just, everything just like back to factory, obviously I'll swap it and just make it a clean-ass runner, like spare no expense, and then I would drive it straight to my cousin's house, who I talk to all the time. It's her dad's truck, and I'd just let her cruise it. And that's what I would do if I had $1 million to spend on a truck. Like I'd spend the money to hunt it down and to purchase it, and then I would hook it up.
Hell yeah, that's pretty badass. So mine's a little bit wilder than yours, but
do it, man.
Okay, so this might be kind of weird. Stretched K5, 74, because I like that grill and that whole, the whole top thing. So all-wheel drive, long travel, like centered A-arms, kind of like Yoki or Loki or whatever BJ's truck is called this week. But like way faster, all-wheel drive, twin turbo, big cubic inch LS, like 454 cubic inch LSX. That'd be pretty sick. Anti-lag, because you got to have like the turbos that are big enough to eat a small child, and then like launch control. So you're just like, you could sit there at the light or in the sand, and you're just like. Yeah. Oh, dude, yeah, we have to have like a 3-step because it's going to be like 1,500 horsepower. Oh yeah. Yeah, like getaway in Stockholm status, dude, or like rally car freaking staging, just like and then you just freaking grab a gear, just like totally stupid. Yeah. It has to be violent, fast, and then but the thing is this is gonna throw everybody off. It's got to have hater pipes that come out of the hood with the dingers on it.
What do they call those things? Freaking,
little flappers, yeah.
Stacks or whatever.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, so when you freaking are, you're shifting gears, it's like, when the freaking wastegate's open. But it still has to have AC, totally badass interior. So like, if you look at a Bugatti Veyron, that's basically got to be like that on the inside, because nobody ever expects that from a pre-runner. Like they go into it and they're like, oh, this is cool, and it's like some flat panels that guys bent on sheet metal and they wrapped them with leather because that's cool. No, I'm talking like way beyond even that. Like it has to be like you have to get in and think you're in a spaceship, and then just absolutely violent, batshit crazy, stupid stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's no crazier than Moonbender's K5 because Moonbender, that thing made what like 700 horsepower to the tire through the 5-ton axle, so like triple that.
Dude,
It's
I
got
don't
to.
even know what Moonbender's K5 is. Tell me about it.
Oh, so it's a stretched K5. It's on like 54s, I think. He's coilover front and rear, links front and rear, 4-wheel steering. It was like at the Tough Truck Challenge or the I can't remember, but it's ridiculous, dude. Ridiculous. Twin turbo or a single or twin turbo 6-liter. I mean, it's bad, dude. It's a crawler with turbos, and he uses it. He is. I think he made it up backdoor. Last year, I don't know. He's crazy, dude. Like I've only seen bits and pieces. Way to go, Dave. Way to go.
You
Anyways,
guys can't hear that, but I like turn it to him. So, yeah. Anyways.
oh man, Dave burped again. If anybody was wondering.
Yeah.
Hot sauce. So Thomas is over here. Cam specs. We can find out the right springs. You know, you guys. Dave and I. We've talked about this cam thing at length. I'm hooked up with Richard Holdener. We're gonna get him on the show at some point, I think. He really has tested every combo that you can possibly imagine: big turbo, small turbo, with a cam, without a cam, with heads, without heads. Like every single thing you see, you could possibly think of: intakes, headers, large tube headers, small tube headers. I mean, stuff that we probably haven't even heard of. He's tested, so I'm going to talk to him, see if we can get him on the show here at some point.
That'd be awesome, dude.
Yeah, he's got a lot of articles out there, so you guys can find the information. It's out there. Richard Holdener, check him out. But yeah, I think that's good. What do you got, Dave? Anything else?
Oh, yeah, no, I think we're gonna wrap this thing up, guys. I appreciate you guys rolling with us tonight, and like we're gonna be coming up with a lot more cool stuff to talk about. So if you guys want to hear about something or you want to talk about something in a future episode, we're kind of just going to keep it like this, where we're going to try to stay on subject, but we're just going to like talk with you guys and see what you guys got going on. So definitely put them down in the comments below. You could send them to us. You know, hook up with us on Instagram, like so. The Fortify Offroad Dix 4x4. Get us on Instagram. I don't know. We don't use Twitter, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? What you want to?
Yeah,
what,
buddy.
You want beef, homie?
What? You got something?
But guys, I appreciate you guys rolling with us tonight, and we're gonna get
you guys very much.
You guys take it easy.
All right, you guys, take care.